I just think it's those types of relationships. And when you really submit yourself to those types of relationships and you're constantly adding value, what you get in return is the ability to be sharpened, to think different, to become the best version of yourself so you can make the greatest impact you can with your life.
Welcome to the Dr. Rewire podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rewire, aka Dr. Alok Trivedi. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today, I've got someone super special and exciting that I'm going to interview today. He's a friend of mine. He's a colleague of mine, someone who's doing amazing things in the world. He's actually helping change a lot of lives. He's helping people grow. He's helping them stack their successes and drive their lives. Please help me welcome my friend, Ken Joslin. Ken, thanks for being here, my man.
What's up, my friend, man? Honored to be here with you, dude.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you, man. We've had so many opportunities to connect and chat. We just haven't had a chance to actually do this podcast. It's been a long time coming, so I'm really glad that we actually get a chance to talk. So tell me a little bit about, your story, your history. You've done some amazing, you used to be a pastor, a real estate guru, and now you're helping build leaders inside that. So talk to me about kind of where your journey's been and where leadership has fell into place with that.
Yeah, so leadership for me, I've been in ministry last 25 to 30 years, about half of that in full-time vocational ministry. For those of you who don't know what that means I got paid to be a pastor. Not a lot. The other half, I was in real estate. I've done about $300 million in real estate transactions, top producing mortgage broker for about 7 or 8 years in the state of Georgia. And then also 2016 on, top producing real estate agent. Finished 7th out of 3,725 agents back in 2019, 2020. And then I met this dude named Grant Cardone and started this little brand called GSD. And now we have the #1 faith-based entrepreneur conference in the country. We do twice a year in Atlanta and Dallas. You've been with us once in Atlanta called Create. We've got one coming up at the end of July of this year. And then we'll be in Atlanta again. Guys like John Maxwell, you've been there with us. Our good friend Randy Garn, Jesse Itzler, Ed Milet, Brendan Burchard, Erwin McManus, John Gordon, Catherine Gordon, Gary Brecka, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So we get to do that. So, dude, I'm having a blast. I've got a team with EXP. I've got about 49 agents in my organization with EXP. We're doing great there. Got a guy who runs that. But, dude, I'm passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community, man.
I love that. Let's talk about that, like creating community, because you have a different framework. I love the framework that you talk about in that. I've heard you say it several times. I'd love to have you kind of explain how you create this framework of creating relationships. You want to go through that because I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, the relationships, I think there are 3 spheres of relationships that every leader needs. Every human needs. Community, circle, and corner. And community is that large group of people that you travel with. I've been to a couple of your events that are, dude, I've watched you do stuff that blown my mind. So any of you guys that are listening to this podcast, you've got to get connected on what Dr. T's doing. It's absolutely amazing. It's mind-blowing for me that night we were there in Utah with you. So community is that group of people that you travel with. You have a community inside of your Dr. Rewire kind of community. So you've got a community, a large group of people, same DNA, same passion, same like-mindedness. You're going in the same direction. And so then you have your circle. And your circle are the 10 or 12 people you spend the most time with. Like, who are the people that you're doing life with? You're going to the beach, you're playing golf, you're going to church together, you're doing business together. Like, who are the people you're spending the most time with? Couple things about your circle is, are you evaluating who's in that circle constantly? Like, you need to be looking at who are the 10 or 12 people and where are they? My 10 or 12 people, I'm usually towards the bottom on and literally faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. Like, I'm at the, I want to hang around people that are guys that are, way further down the road than I am. And then you've got probably the most important is your corner. And your corner are those 2 to 3 people in your life that I say have a 10,000 foot view of what's going on in your life. That I've got 6 guys on a text thread. There's 6 of us. Me, Gary Brecka, top biohacker in the world, Randy Garn, who's a good friend of ours. That's how we got connected. Brent Gove, one of the top guys at EXP, he has 19,000 agents in his organization to the tune of about 1.2 million a month in rev share with them. My best friend, Master Jeff Persian from LA, you've met, he lives in Calabasas. Forbes magazine calls him the Tony Robbins Persia. Vic Keller sold 11 companies to Warren Buffett for a lot of money. Served as CEO for Berkshire Hathaway Automotives for 3 years for Mr. B. And then Brian Covey, vice president of Revolution Mortgage, about a $5 billion a year company. So those guys, and in those, let me say this, Dr. T, in those 5 men, like each of those, when I talk about our core 5, faith, health, relationship, business, and finances, each of those guys hits a specific area for me. Sure. If I need something for health, Gary Breck is my guy. If I need something for business, I'm talking to Randy Garn, or I'm talking to Vic Keller. If I need something about relationship or something personal, I'm going to Jeff or I'm going to Brent Gove. Like I've got certain guys in there that if it's a specific one of my core 5, I know which guys I'm going to be able to get some wisdom and advice from my life.
See, I love the idea of that, right? It's so holistic, which is so very far-fetched from where people come from, right? They think that life is just one component, one side, one angle, and that's it, like success. It's all about success in that. But you're talking about success in life from a holistic perspective. And maybe that comes from your journey as a pastor in the ministry. But I love how you're doing that because most people don't think about it in that capacity. They think, okay, money is a factor of success or sales or business growth. You're talking about it from a holistic perspective. I guess when you look at it from a standpoint of leadership, how do you take that and apply your corner to leadership as you serve your community?
Well, I mean, they help me be better. They help me become the best version of me. I mean, we got a lot of mutual friends, with Randy being one of them. I'll never forget that first Create conference I did a year and a half ago with John Maxwell, Jesse Itzler, Randy, Amberly Lago, Carlos Reyes, Anthony Trucks. I mean, some really, really, really good friends of mine. And I'll never forget Randy. Jen Gottlieb was up on stage on Friday. She was one of our last speakers on Friday, and Randy leaned over and he goes, "Man, I know why God's connected us. I'm here to help you get your message to the world." And I knew when Randy told me that, I knew like, oh, I'm not dreaming big enough. Like I'm not thinking big enough. Like there's more out there for me. I mean, he's a New York Times bestselling author, has his own VC firm, sits on the board with Tony Robbins. I mean, he's out. I mean, I'm a pretty connected dude. He makes me look like I don't know anybody. Yeah, he makes me look like I'm a hermit and lives in a cave in the middle of nowhere that has no friends. And I'm pretty connected, and he is uber connected. So I just think it's those types of relationships. And when you really submit yourself to those types of relationships and you're constantly adding value, what you get in return is the ability to be sharpened, to think different, to become the best version of yourself so you can make the greatest impact you can with your life.
I guess when you look at it, right, like, Ken, your journey of ministry, real estate, business, now training entrepreneurs, how have you been able to, just in your own personal experience, I mean, what are some of the big successes you think you've had? What have been some of the big failures you think you've had? How those helped you in becoming a greater leader? And how does failure and success contribute to leadership, in your opinion?
Huge, man. Failure. I had 27-year marriage ended about 3.5 years ago. And, for me, just now understanding, I walked into a therapist's office. I mean, I've been doing therapy. I've been in ministry a long time. So I've been doing therapy, and, my ex, we had been through therapy together, but there was, for whatever reason, I walked in a therapist's office 1.5 years ago. Maxine's in Birmingham, Alabama. I tell people all the time, she's like a mild version of Medea. She's an older Black lady. Dude, she doesn't put up with any nonsense. I walk in the door. The first question I get is, "How are you and Jesus doing? You and Jesus doing okay this week? How's your prayer life going?" She's just on me. But the first session I was with her, you want to talk about failure and in the pain, the purpose being in your pain. I walk in, she goes, "Hey, Ken, tell me your story." And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, pretty simple. I was born in Detroit, raised in Pontiac. Parents got divorced when I was 8. From 2nd grade, mom moved us to Georgia. From my 6th grade year to my senior year of high school, I moved back and forth to Michigan 6 different times to live with my dad. She's taking notes. She's doing the therapist thing. She's taking notes in her little journal. And she looks at me and she goes, "Why in the world would you want to move so many times?" And I said, "Maxine, I didn't have a choice. If I ever got in trouble, my mom would tell me to go pack a bag. And I had 24 to 48 hours, and I was on a bus, a plane, or my dad was on the way from Michigan to pick me up." And she looked at me. Now, this is off of just a very difficult season. My divorce was just final. This has been 1.5 years ago. Divorce is literally final like 2 weeks before that. She looks me in the eye, and it's the second biggest aha moment I've ever had in my life. And she said, well, Ken, how do you think that's affected your relationship with the women in your life who are supposed to love and protect you? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 weeks before that, I was in San Francisco with a woman that I love dearly. I love deeply. And she picked me up at the airport. We didn't even make it out of the city limits. We had an argument. I made her pull the car over. I got out and I got my suitcase and I left. And here was a 53-year-old man still living out the trauma of a 13-year-old boy. Except now, you're not going to tell me to leave. I'm going to get my suitcase and I'm leaving before you tell. And it was trauma, and it was a trigger, and I was reacting to things and I had no idea why. And so that started a journey a year and a half ago for me really working on me so I could become the best version of me, so I could have the relationship and the partnership and the aligned partnership that I wanted to have.
So important that you're talking about that, right? Because as a leader in leadership conversations, sometimes people avoid that, the childhood stuff. And in our world, in the Dr. Rewire world, obviously, we work through that. So we're rewiring, positive, negative, all that inside that so that we can get rid of that. And so we can actually be our most authentic self and function and vibrate at a higher function and frequency inside that, which makes a ton of sense inside that. Even from a health standpoint and health and vitality, it's super important. But from a leadership standpoint, it's so important to realize that the things that happen in our childhood, how they affect how we live on a day-to-day basis. Now, I want to take even this step further and say, I wonder how that's, maybe that example, how that's affected not just your relationships with women in a capacity of, intimacy, but what about women that you work with? What about women that you have to deal with on a day-to-day? Everyone, right? Like we all deal with
huge. Because, there's been so many, it's not just my therapy with Maxine or my therapy that I do with Lauren, who actually will speak at my Create conference in July. She spoke at my Create conference in January. She's one of the top somatic therapists. I mean, I've learned how to be grounded. I've learned how to sit in the chair and feel my feet on the floor and feel my bottom in my seat and just be present. It was 3 or 4 sessions in with Lauren, an hour long. She looked at me and she goes, Ken, I'm really proud of you. I said, why? She goes, because you're present with me today. You weren't checking your phone. You weren't looking at this. You weren't, you weren't doing you were present with me the entire time because I had learned how to control my central nervous system.
Yeah.
I'd learned how to respond versus react. And it made, it was a game changer. I was speaking at the Undercover Billionaire Boot Camp in Colorado a few months ago. It's my second time out with Matt and Jenny. And there was a guy there that I sat and had dinner with who used to be in my community, been in several of my events. And we were talking and he just said, after about an hour, he looked at me, he goes, Ken, you're a different person. Like there is such a calm and a peace about who you are, where a year and a half ago, you were not that way. It was go, 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 go. It was 100 miles an hour. It didn't really take time to stop and slow down for anything. No reflection, because I had to outrun the pain and the trauma that was there. And I had no idea that's even what it was. But I had not talked to him in about a year, and he realized the difference in my life just through the therapy that I've been through.
That's so great. That's so powerful inside that. Ken, I want to ask you something that maybe, I don't know, maybe people have talked to you about, but what was your journey in transition? Because a lot of the people, when you look at it, people have to go through different adaptations, have to transition from one period of life to another period of life, right? They say the seasons of life so exist. Can you talk to us about how was your transition? Well, let me say this before I put it on you. My transition, from a practicing doctor to more of an educator and a seminar leader, there was, because you live as a practicing doctor, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the path, that's the journey, that's what you know. And then you have to move to a different side of your life, and nobody understands what you're doing. Nobody understands this business. Nobody gets it. Yeah. It's like, oh, so what was your journey of kind of going from this place almost of ministry where it's spiritual and grounded and helping and serving in that capacity, moving to a different place of service, I would agree, but more to the place of business and money and that side of it. What was the mental struggles, mental challenges you kind of went through, or not, or
I don't know that I had any challenges. For us, we have what we call our core 5: faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. It all starts with faith, and every time we do a mastermind or a conference, we start at faith, and we go through faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. I have some of the best speakers in the world on each of those specific areas that make up who we are as a human. And I get asked the question a lot, do you miss ministry? I was on Bradley's podcast in Vegas last year, and he could not. He was like, "Well, do you miss ministry?" We kept talking. I said, "Brad, I do as much ministry now as I've ever done before. I mean, it's the same thing. I'm helping in the business sector with people who would never come to my church on Sunday, which is amazing. And so I'm outside what we would say the four walls of the church, and really doing what Jesus would do if he were here in the flesh. And so what he would be doing too. He wouldn't just be in the synagogue or the church on a Sunday. He would be out doing what he did in the first four books of the New Testament, which we call the Gospels in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He was out in people's everyday lives, which is what I'm doing now, which is why faith is that first component for us in our core five.
Completely. I agree in that capacity. And I love that you can see the transition in that, right? Like you're still being who you are. I think the reason I say that is because I think I detached from myself early on. Like I thought to be a speaker, to be in the speaking space, to be in the educating space, I had to be different than who I was. And it's hard for people to kind of, they want to separate themselves from who they were. I remember I was like, oh, I have to be less of an Indian guy or less of a doctor, less of a chiropractor. And I have to be this other persona so much more. And I was telling my son this weekend, and I was like, the more I actually owned the parts of myself that I was, that's when things started to show up for me. That's when things started to make sense for me. And it wasn't about chasing anything after that. The more I started to put on another persona, the more I had to chase. The less I put on a persona, the less I had to chase. It was really interesting understanding inside that. And you, as a leader in your community and what you're doing and helping people inside that, I'm sure you're teaching that in that capacity as well. But I guess when you look at it for yourself and what you're trying to build and grow into, I guess what's the thing that you ultimately want to create with your community?
Yeah, it's creating leaders that create leaders that create leaders. I mean, I deal with, business owners from startup to I've got guys doing, 90 million a year in sales. I've got guys that own, let's say, take Vic, for example, 17 companies, he chairs 9 of them. He just bought a furniture company for $290 million last September. He owns Christensen Arms. It's the largest sporting rifle manufacturer in the country, the top sporting rifle manufacturer in the country. And, so we've got people at literally every different level of business. For me, I just want to help them become the best version, build confidence, gain clarity, create community. How can I help you be the most confident version of who you are? How can I help you have clarity? Like, how can I help you every single day know exactly what I'm going after? And then on the community side, how can I pair and connect you with relationships that you need to know? I did that with you, Dr. Rob Kelly and Gary Brecka on a Zoom call one time. Literally, just got us together and said, hey, you guys, here, I want you guys to connect and meet each other.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So you have an event coming up here in a couple of weeks, and I want to make sure that you're able to talk about it because it's an amazing event, and I recommend highly everyone get a chance to get out there. Talk about it. Tell me what you're building. Tell me what you're doing. Tell everyone what it's all about, so you get a chance to, so they can hear and they can get out there into Dallas, right?
Dallas, Texas, July the 26th, 7th, and 8th. Gonna be in Dallas, Texas. Create number one entrepreneur conference, faith-based entrepreneur conference in the country. I've got my good friend Brenda Bouchard coming out. Our good friend Randy Garn, Gary Brecka, Erwin McManus, John Gordon, Catherine Gordon, Amberly Lago, Marie Castro. I mean, literally, when you talk about faith, health, relationship, business, and finances, Big Keller, my best friend Master Jeff. I mean, it is some of the best communicators and people specific to those individual, those core of who we are. We can spend 2.5 days together. Live band, unbelievable people. We'll have several hundred people that'll be there, and we will have an absolute blast for 2.5 days, really becoming the best version of ourselves in those core 5 areas.
It was amazing when I remember I came to your first event, and it was amazing that the connection, the community that was built inside that, the people, and how are they just willing to grow and help each other grow inside. And that was the first one, and I'm sure it's continuing to grow and build inside that as well. But that's the thing of repetition. But the thing inside of it that I loved about it was how sincere everyone was. Everyone, like all the speakers, they didn't just take off and run away. Like they weren't sitting in a green room the entire time. They were out. They were talking to people. They were interacting with people. They were like answering questions. I thought that was so cool that people did that at the conference, and that's part of the community that you're building.
I tell people all the time, it's the number one thing we get every single time. This last time in Atlanta, John Maxwell, Ed Milet, Carlos Reyes, the whole group of friends that I have was, we didn't have anybody go from green room to stage back to green room. Not even John. John goes from stage to green room, or from stage last year, literally walked outside and we had a break and signed, books and met with people and did pictures for probably 45 minutes. It's just a different experience. It's a different culture. And I love what we've created and what we're building. And I'm super excited to take it to Dallas. I can't wait even next year to take it somewhere on the West Coast, so we can literally take this. And my best friend Jeff says this all the time, it's not even a community. It's almost like a family reunion.
Sure.
It's of very, very, very successful and high impact entrepreneurs.
I love that. July 26th, 27th, 28th, Dallas, Texas. Where can they get more information on it, Ken?
growstackdrive.com/create Dallas, or you can hit me up on Instagram at Ken Joslin, KenJoslin. We're going to have a blast.
Guys, check it out. I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing event. Ken is a great speaker, communicator, but more than that, he's put together a lineup that's just unbelievable. Brandon Bouchard, Randy Gard, Rudy Rickstein, Vic Kell. Like, it is a powerhouse communicator. Rudy Rickstein, if you've never heard him speak, he's one of my favorites. I heard him speak, and I was like blown away how good he is. He's unbelievable. You want to hear him speak. You want to hear all these guys. Amberly Lago, one of the greatest stories communicators, in my opinion, in the world today, when it comes to motivation, understanding, and the depth of courage that woman has. Like, you guys want to go grow, get there. Grow, stack, drive. Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. Go check him out. I appreciate you being here, my friend.
I appreciate it, dude. Love you, bro.
You too, man.